You almost ready, Leah? Okay. I think we're about seconds away from 7 PM. We'll even get started a little early. How's that? So it's calling the order of the Town of Portsmouth Planning Board meeting for February 13th, 2025. So we have a roll call. We have Mr. O'Connell, Dave Garso, Mr. Harding, Edward Lopes, Kate Wilson, Mr. Tibbetts, and our newest member, Mr. Don Kluge's. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to move on to item 2, approval of the January 9th planning board meetings that should have been in your packet. What is the board's pleasure?
Make a motion to accept the January 9th, 2025 planning board meeting as written.
All right, we got a motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion? I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Next up is a request from WC Coastal Development LLC and WC Upland Development LLC for a 2-year extension of the master plan approval originally granted on March 8th, 2023, with a decision recorded May 5th, 2023, for a major planned marina village known as Weaver Cove, located on Assessor's Plat 43, lots 3, 4, and 7, and Plot 50, lots 6 and 7. I'm going to continue my recusal because of my long-term association with this project, and I'm going to turn over the chairmanship to Mr. Harding, and I'm going to sit in the audience.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Acting Chair, members of the board, Gerard Galvin from Galvin Law on behalf of WC Coastal Development and WC Upland Development. As was read into the record, we're requesting an extension to the master plan approval that we received just under 2 years ago. Most of you were here and part of the board that heard that application and are aware of the scope of the property involved. We're talking about approximately 45 acres, Superfund site, a lot of environmental work still underway. A lot of work at the state agencies has to occur to get us to a point of filing for the preliminary plan application. Additionally, some of you may recall at the master plan hearing, some of the issues discussed were those relating to easements and cross easements for access with some of our neighbors. We have been working on those and have been close to agreement, and we're very optimistic, but some of that property has since sold. So we are sort of re-engaging with new ownership to achieve some of those goals, to smooth some of those things out. So, there's a lot of balls in the air, a lot of work to do for this site. And that's the basis for our request for the extension for the master plan approval.
I myself can see no reason that, does anybody on the board here by any chance have any reason why it's a no-brainer?
No, this agency feels fairly routine.
Complexity.
Well, especially with the complexity of all that shoreline stuff. So would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion to approve a 2-year extension for Weaver Cove. Do we do it for them today, or do we say it from March 2025? Starting March 8th, 2025, since they said that.
If I could ask, and I'll
Yeah.
defer to the solicitor. My request would be to have the extension run from the date the decision was recorded, which was the May, I believe it was May 5th, which is, I think, the operative 2 years from that date.
Okay. Okay.
If that's okay, yeah.
They make the May 2027.
Is there a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
All right, then we'll just take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Nope. You have it.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. it's been a long time. That was
gone-
right.
I was gone for long.
Yeah.
All right. Next up on the agenda is plan review, Board and Farm Estates LLC, applicant and owner for property located at 2951 and 2976 East Main Road, being assessed as plot 31, lots 32 and 32A. The applicant is requesting a pre-application plan review of a comprehensive permit plan pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4553-4 for the development of 20 new residential units with 25% designated as low and moderate income housing. And I believe this is a concept plan review, so there is no vote we'll take tonight.
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
All right, could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Certainly, Michael Monty of Say Regan and Thayer, 130 Bellevue Ave, on behalf of the applicant and owner, Board and Farm Estates LLC. So as your chair said, this is a concept plan review for a comprehensive permit application. The materials you have before you, and I don't know if we can pull them up on the screens. A lot of engineering work has gone into this further than would be typical for a standard concept plan review. So as you're looking at this, you might find, these plans are quite detailed. It's the old Board and Farm property. The existing farmhouse was previously developed into a 6-unit multifamily. The plan is to merge the existing 2 lots, so the farmhouse lot and the property to the north that the barn is on. So it'll be merged into 1 lot. It's 2.83 acres combined. The proposal is to put 4 new townhouses on the north and east side. So 2 on the north property line and then 2 on the east property line. There would be 4 2-bedroom units in each of those new structures. The barn would be renovated and there would be 4 units in the renovated barn as well. So there would be 20 new units total, plus the 6 existing.
Yeah.
And then pursuant to the comprehensive permit law, which allows us to do this project, there would be affordable mixed throughout the development. So there would be 1 affordable unit in each new structure and 1 affordable in the barn. So that's 5 of the 20 new units would be affordable. This would be a condominium complex, so they would be sold, the units would be sold as a condominium. You've got the site plan in front of you. We've also submitted architectural plans. I have with me tonight Tom Principe of Principe Engineering and Brian Shull of Shull Architecture. The proprietor of the LLC is also here. And really, we're just here to elicit feedback from you, what you think about the project, ask our project team questions, and we're hoping to come back before you during your March meeting with our preliminary plan application. And I will also add that the owner of the property of Board and Farms Estates, Garrett, met with the abutting property owners and the residences, I think on the, would that be the east property line. They had a community meeting and they've exchanged information and ideas. And my client is committed to certain buffers that they're looking for, noise restrictions in the condominium documents. There's concern about the actual construction of the project and what hour they would start at, and those types of things have been discussed. So with that, we're happy to receive your feedback on the materials that have been submitted.
Great. So is the intention to put on your witnesses like Mr. Principe and the architect? We can,
Yeah, I can
Well,
have them. I
sure.
can have them each come up and walk through the site plan and the architectural design if that's what the board prefers. I think it would be helpful to start with the architecture.
sure.
Brian, if you want to come up and we can hopefully toggle to that on the screen.
You know what they're called? The plans.
The plans, the full plans that was submitted
All the,
in the link. We'll start with what we have, and the renderings were certainly produced. Do you have the renderings
we
in
have-
front of you?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so if we're not able to pull them up on the screen, at least you have them in front of you, and Brian can speak to those and walk you through the design choices.
I guess I'll start with the barns. Could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Brian Scholl, Scholl Architecture.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to start with the barn. It's an existing structure that's kind of post and beam, and we're going to divide it into 4 units. Each unit's going to have 3 floors, so they're kind of stacked each unit. That's about it for the barn. Do you want to know about materials?
But sure, whatever you think is
I think it
pertinent,
would
I
be
think that,
helpful
yeah.
if you give an idea of the materials on the barn versus the new and.
Yeah,
It does, not to interrupt you, but it does look like you're trying to maintain the current architecture of the barn, so.
yes,
That's probably something we'd like to hear about as well.
yes, we're trying to minimize the amount of changes on the exterior. There's some places where we have to introduce egress windows, so we kind of have to do that. But we're trying to keep it limited. We're trying to maintain the shingles that are on the exterior. And that's about it for that.
Could you talk about, the configuration of the units and the new townhouses, and then what materials we're thinking for those as well?
Yeah. So the townhouse, there's 4 of them, or 4 buildings, and they each have 4 units in each one. And those are 2 stories each, 2 bedrooms. The materials on those I think we're showing shingles right now, but I think we're going to lean more towards clapboard composite material with composite trim and some board and batten that's composite as well. Asphalt shingle roof.
There's a small outbuilding too, is that?
Yes,
keeping that, what's that gonna be?
we're relocating that. We're just planning to maintain the existing materials that are on that, which is cedar shingle.
And then what happens in the existing home?
There are no proposed changes.
Okay.
To the existing structure. That was renovated, I think, 2 years ago. Thereabouts.
Okay. Look, are you done with your?
Unless there are any.
I'm gonna see
questions
if
for
any
the
board members want to ask any questions on the architectural piece.
I'm just
Go ahead,
wondering,
Luke.
Are these gonna be stick or are they modular, like the ones that are down by Elephant Lane, that used to be the little cottages, those came in just 4 pieces.
Oh,
Are these all stick built?
the plan is stick built.
Any other board members have questions? I just have a question on the barn. So it's got a really interesting foundation piece with the stacked stone. And you're going to maintain that too?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And the owner can also speak to some of these details, building details, Jared DeCastro, the owner of the LLC.
Sure, could you
So-
just state your name and address for the
Yep.
record so we can
Jared
record?
DeCastro, 24 Randolph Way, Portsmouth.
Thank you.
I only wanted to throw in quick 2 cents just from a design concept. Obviously, he's doing the full architecture, stick build, this and that for material. But it's important for me to convey that we designed this entire concept as if driving down East Main Road is still a board and farm. The house stays, the barn stays, that medium-sized structure, we're actually moving it forward to utilize it to hide even more of the new structures in the back, as well as the dumpsters that'll have to go in there. Trees will be strategically placed. So again, it's important for me to feel like driving through Portsmouth, it still feels like Borden Farm there. So that Borden Farm Estates is kind of the overall vision. Barn stays the same, house stays the same. All the materials collaborate and that overall concept just blends together really nicely.
And you finished the commercial building next door too, which
Yes.
has got some great architectural features as
Yep,
well.
was
Yeah,
similar barn style. That one was a little newer. We're
sure,
gonna go a little older look in this.
great.
That's all I got. That's all I wanted to throw in there.
Any questions for Mr. DeCastro? Go ahead, Dave.
Yep, so that was the literally kitchen table conversation we had about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I brought them plans, showed them exactly what we're doing, asked for some feedback, threw out some suggestions. So a representation of every one of those homes was at the table with us when we reviewed that. So their concerns were obvious, right? Anything boundary. So we negotiated and made concessions on certain things between, maybe it wouldn't just be a single row of trees, which I legally have to do, right? Now it's gonna be X and Y. So we've had those conversations back and forth and agreed on things that I can add to kind of take their minds off ease a little bit, both boundary and like Mike mentioned, some things with timing and construction time and things that I can build into the condominium document since I'm building those now that helps put their mind at ease from a long-term perspective. Short-term rentals, start time, stuff like that. So overall good as it could be from a response. I think they're pleased that at least we're conversing.
Go ahead, Mr. Tibbetts.
Do you envision the construction being contiguous, or does it depend on pre-sales and sales?
Well, economies of scale, I want to get in and get out. Funding would be the pivot point with that and whether I can get full vertical funding and get it done in 12 months. Or if I need to phase out, regardless, I would want to be done in 18 months or less is my goal.
So it depends.
Yeah. Quicker the better
Thank you. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
for everyone's sake.
keeps your overhead.
Interest rates aren't going down anytime soon.
Mr. Hardy.
Yeah, remember when John Borden came here and he built the houses that are in the back? And there was a back road that was the entrance into their area, but the ability to board and farm and go out. Is there a second means, like, is there from this development, if they had to, or a fire truck had to come, is there a way or to get from this road, new road going in, a new road already open, but is there a second means to get out of it?
No, nope. So there used to be a cut through, to your point, that came from East Main back to whatever that side street is back there. And actually Amazon drivers still screw it up all the time and end up in the middle of the field. So when John built his development in the back, it's just one in, one out for those 5 houses. And then for me, it'll be one in, one out with that turning radius, et cetera, that's acceptable for fire department.
Yeah.
But it doesn't connect and there's no egress. Yep, fire department's very happy with what we've got from an engineering perspective.
Any other questions for Mr. DeCastro?
So, do you have a question, sir? So I also have Tom Principe here, and he can speak to some of these engineering details and our meeting with the technical review committee,
Great.
which was about 10 days ago, I think. Tom, if you just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Tom Principe, Principe Engineering, address in 27 Secana Ridge Drive in Tiverton, registered professional engineer. Again, just to touch base on a few just general points, big overview. I know we're here for pre-application, but one of the points that council has stated is we actually dove into the engineering here. We actually did all of the engineering here for the on-site wastewater treatment systems, for the grading, for the drainage, stormwater, soil erosion control. Our Department of Transportation PAP permit has been applied for and submitted, so that is pending. We had to get a RIPD's permit because of the disturbances greater than 1 acre. That's already been submitted to the DEM. That's already been reviewed. We've got positive feedback from the state. on this application and all the engineering elements. So that's just one thing I really want to stress to the board is that it does work. The soil testing has passed. The on-site wastewater treatment systems are suitable to handle this amount of bedroom counts, excuse me, and volume. And again, I think was it 10 days ago, we had the TRC meeting with Portsmouth Water. The fire department was there, DPW, I believe police, and the building official was there. We got positive feedback. The fire department has no issues here. And to your point, Mr. Harding, there is no more connection, but however, we do have a full turning radius cul-de-sac on our property itself, so it's self-sustainable. So the fire apparatus and any emergency vehicles can turn around on our own property. We don't need to cut through to Cananchit is the other street in the back that was developed. The pavement, again, it meets all of the fire department, excuse me, sorry, specifications. The stormwater is actually broken up into a couple different elements. We have a stormwater infiltration basin just for the pavement driving surface area. The fire department doesn't like gravel, and it's like this dichotomy we kind of deal with stormwater and gravel and being porous, and then the fire department's requirements for asphalt and hardtop. They also have that requirement for slope. They don't want slopes greater than 5%. It's a very, very flat site. I'm sure some of you know Borden Farm. The topography is fairly flat. So that's an advantage to us. There's very minimal grading. The drainage for the roofs for the new impervious, that's all going to be underground. So that leaves room for more landscape. We do have a landscape plan that's part of the package. And there's an infiltration basin that's just used to collect the runoff from the pavement and the parking areas. That is just, again, a grass infiltration basin. It's going to be a very shallow basin. It doesn't need to be fenced. It's going to, again, dry out within 48 hours. So it's not necessarily a pond itself. It's an infiltration basin that's going to be grass. Again, we have 3 individual on-site wastewater treatment systems, which are bottomless sand filters, which you guys see all around town. Each sand filter is designed to handle 2 of the buildings. So we actually have 6 buildings on site. We have 2 existing buildings, right? We have the existing garage and the existing Borden Farm. Then we have 4 proposed buildings. Again, as our client mentioned, we designed them in the back. So you actually kind of can't see them as much from the street. It's going to be hidden and masked by the 2 existing buildings that are there today. So each sand filter is going to handle 2 buildings. So there's 3 total sand filters. Then again, everything's going to be privately owned and maintained by the homeowners association. That's what the Department of Public Works was worried about. So again, private trash, snow plowing, everything is going to be private on this development itself. And
Even though you have existing impervious with the 2 existing buildings, you're accounting for additional runoff from those.
that's correct. Yes, we're counting actually for all of it. Yes. Yep.
Lot coverage here, about what percentage with all these buildings and
Yeah, so we had that calculation, if you can give me a second, well, if council has it. So our total building coverage is about 11.72%. It's on the title sheet. Yeah. And the existing coverage was 4.2. Obviously, we're increasing it, but we're still within tolerances of what's allowed. Yep.
Everybody has a problem. You're changing it from commercial to residential.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's correct.
located within the multifamily overlay district. So right now, there's an existing residential on one of the lots, the converted, well, the old farmhouse, then the barn on the northerly lot. Both of these lots are in a zone where affordable housing residential is permitted. So we're not changing it from my perspective. And also, I know you're asking about lot coverage. The only variances we anticipate requesting have to do with the distance of the structures between one another. I think we require that as a variance, and also the distance from the center roadway. So very minimal relief necessary to make this project work.
In the fire department.
The fire department, yeah, the department heads have all already reviewed this at the technical review committee meeting 10 days ago. And even prior to that.
Yeah, again, Mr. Harding, it's that requirement and board is 100 feet between buildings. It's kind of difficult to do on site, especially like this. So that's one of the variances we're asking for. But again, the fire department will review the final building plans and figure out the building type and making sure that we have the appropriate
Yeah,
spacing.
Pat, they-
Yeah.
you know, they-
But we've been meeting with Chief Ford. Actually, our client's been real good. He's been in their office quite frequently. And again, we just had the TRC recently on the plans that are in front of you this evening, and they didn't have any issues. We have 2 new fire hydrants that we're putting in as well for that. So,
I think the main offset consideration to the variances required is all predicated on you're providing the community with these AMI distributed units, so.
right, correct.
Other questions for this petitioner? I have one remain. Go ahead, Kate. You have one?
When you took out this, when the.
Can you speak in the microphone?
I remember when we put in that little business on the on the south side, there was all cut out and removed from the Borden Farm property. You remember what the master plan decision was on individual things that you said that you were going to or not going to do? Was there because I thought that there wasn't going to be anything behind the building. Or was it just behind the property line, not behind
Mhm.
the other property, the second property?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the answer to that question. I'm sure we can.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Get
Is
back
that
to
for
you on
with,
that.
so the development adjacent to it, you're saying there might be some form of restrictions and a
I
different,
thought that
There's some discussion to this development
So,
back then, you're right.
so
Yeah, the
adjacent to the
barn- the
new
barn-
commercial building that got constructed, right? The new one that was constructed to the south,
Yes.
that's already been constructed.
Well, yes, but there was a piece of property where the septic system was for the Borden building.
That's correct.
And I thought that there wasn't going to be any building in that, behind that building.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the condition there, but there is, to your point, there is the existing septic is behind there. And we're moving it because it's in the way of our drainage system and our roadway infrastructure, so it's getting rebuilt. But I'm not sure about what you're saying about a decision and
we'll certainly,
on that
yeah,
approval.
confirm that there aren't any restrictions
Yeah.
that would prohibit this. That's obviously very important.
Mhm.
If there are, I'm not presently familiar with the details of that
Of that master
development.
plan.
Well, Leah probably can pull it at some time.
I'll definitely look into it.
Yeah,
I don't recall there being any specific conditions,
Yeah,
but
me neither.
we can confirm.
Doesn't ring a bell, but we're gonna look into it for you. It's great.
Any other questions?
I-
from the-
I have a
Go ahead, Leah,
question.
please.
I don't want to lose fact that this particular property is on the National Register of Historic Places. While there are no specific changes to the main primary historic farmhouse, there are 2 existing buildings, accessory structures in the back that I believe are going to be demoed. Do you know the historic significance of those buildings? There's going to be one shed that's going to be relocated.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, there's obviously the main farmhouse and the barn, which will remain. The shed is going to be relocated. The 2 smaller outbuildings we're proposing to remove. We'll be prepared to speak to the historical context of that at the preliminary plan application. We'll note that as a matter we need to give attention to.
So, and of course, it sounds like they're not touching that building, but is it in the state historic preservation officer's purview to influence or comment
It's-
on the surrounding view shed?
It is one of the 13 properties in Portsmouth that are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So I just want to be very careful of that
Would we be awaiting comments then from the SHPO as well?
So, it goes through Rhode Island DOT for the physical alteration permit, and that's how it goes through the the
State
Rhode
historic,
Island
yeah.
Historic Preservation, for review. I think it's very important that,
Yeah.
one, this property has already been,
Altered.
modified and
Yeah, so that-
altered in
yeah.
several ways.
Yeah.
I do think that, the primary structure is not being modified and, the owner has maintained it very well. But yet it is changing and I think, it should get a preliminary review by the state. But it is going through a DOT in some weird fashion.
It gets referred.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that process has begun. We've applied for the DOT permit and it's pending. And our understanding is that that's been transferred to historic preservation. And I think someone from that department actually reached out
Yes.
to your administrative officer. So we understand that they have it. We haven't received any comment yet. We would love to get that feedback, but we're waiting on the
Sure.
state.
So that's a specific checklist item on preliminary plan.
It's not only because, something like this doesn't necessarily go to, show, it's Jeff
Sure.
Emity at,
Yeah.
the National, the Rhode Island State Historic Preservation. It only is going to that route because it has to get a physical alteration permit,
Okay.
which triggers it to go there.
But we would expect that Mr. Emity would comment
Yes.
on the whole
Mhm.
development proper, right?
Mhm.
Okay, okay, great.
Yeah, and I certainly think we would have that before any preliminary plan hearing. We may not have it when we make the submission because we're not required to, but I think we should have it by the hearing. And obviously those comments will be very important to us, and if we need to make adjustments based on them, I expect we will.
Sure. Any other discussion points, Ms. Hitchin?
No, not at this time.
Any from any other board members?
No, it's
I,
just-
go ahead.
It's far along for a pre-application and, it sounds like you've hit up the right people, early on.
Well, so I had a couple things. One was, I noticed on the architectural plan, you had street lighting, which is great, but it doesn't look like it's on the site plan, but is it your intention to have street lighting with all the parking spots that are there?
Yeah, I don't believe we are proposing any sort of street lighting, just building mounted lighting.
Because the architectural plan shows some pretty neat street lighting. Yeah, and the rendering. I just would caution you with that many parking spots, you should figure out some type of site lighting on the parcel, especially if people are gonna be walking around at night.
Understood.
Okay.
And then, generally, could you just give us I think in the application, it says the LMI units will be interdispersed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's correct. So there will be one LMI unit in each proposed new structure and in the proposed converted barn. And when we come back at preliminary, we'll have greater detail on that component of it as
Great.
well.
Great. Okay. So generally, we're not going to give you any kind of a decision, but I think you've heard some of the general comments and they certainly seem favorable. Is there any questions for us before we adjourn?
No, I think what I heard, and this really is an exchange of information, is that the site lighting for the interior roadway, the historic component, those are really the only concerns that I've heard be expressed and perhaps the restrictions, if any, from the other
Previous
development.
master plan, yeah.
Um,
And I do want to commend you, the fact that there are no abutters here. It sounds like you've done your homework, so that's good news.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. There is my schedule. I just had it. I thought it was one. All right. Okay. That, that completes our meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Hold on.
During winter months, I know we always have it at 7 o'clock, but any thing about having it at 6? Or-
We had a debate, I want to say debate, we had some discussions a couple of months ago, and we talked about setting a new date, but there was some conflicts if we tried to move it earlier in the day. So that's why we settled on the 7 p.m.
What was the
timeframe.
question? I didn't hear you.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
having
Kate.
it at, having the planning board meeting at 6,
Oh,
because we seem to have more contentious sometimes, and it goes into 11, 12 o'clock.
I'm open to reconsider it. I mean, we,
I mean, if it stays on Thursday, I prefer 7. I had, like, today I had soccer and I had to run home, change and just get here. But any other day, I'm happy if it, but then Tuesday or Wednesday, I think was a conflict with.
we had a
you.
conflict with
Just
Luke.
thinking
there.
about 6 o'clock. Or even 6:30.
I can,
But what
make-
we-
I could make 6:30.
What we can do is, why don't we make sure we put it on the agenda, because if we're gonna set a new date and time,
Be self,
and we can debate it
next month?
next month, if you don't mind.
you like soccer.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second by Ms. Wilson, Harding Wilson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right.
Help get me out of the office too.